Imagine standing in a place where the sun used to bake the ground into a cracked, dusty pavement. 10 years ago, if you looked toward the horizon in certain parts of Pakistan, you would have seen nothing but a sea of brown, a landscape where the heat was so intense it felt like the earth itself had given up. But today, if you stand in those exact same spots, you aren't looking at dust anymore. You're looking at a wall of vibrant, deep green. You're hearing the sound of birds that haven't been seen in the region for decades. You're feeling a breeze that is actually cool because it's filtered through millions of leaves. Pakistan has just completed one of the most audacious environmental gambits in human history. They didn't just plant a few gardens. They launched the billion-tree tsunami, and the first phase of 500 million trees is already standing tall. This isn't just about nature. This is a total transformation of the land that scientists said was impossible. Today, we are going to see what happens when a nation decides to rebuild its entire ecosystem from the ground up. And trust me, the satellite images of what the land looks like now are absolutely unbelievable. To understand how massive this achievement is, we have to look at the starting line. Pakistan is one of the countries most affected by climate change. For decades, the country saw its forests disappear due to over-farming, illegal logging, and the sheer pressure of a growing population. By the early 2000s, the forest cover had dropped to less than 5%. The consequences were devastating. Without trees to hold the soil, the rains turned into massive floods that washed away entire villages. Without shade, the heat waves became so intense that cities felt like ovens. The land was exhausted, and many thought it was too far gone to save. But then a radical idea took hold. Instead of building more concrete walls to fight the floods, why not build a wall of life? The project started in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, a region with rugged mountains and vast plains that had been stripped of its natural beauty. The goal was simple but terrifyingly ambitious: plant 1 billion trees. But they didn't have 30 years to do it. They wanted to do it in 5. People laughed. They said the saplings would never survive the heat. They said the local communities wouldn't care. They said the corruption would swallow the money before a single seed hit the dirt. But they were wrong. The organizers realized that for this to work, it couldn't be a government project managed from an office in the city. It had to be a movement. The first 500 million trees weren't just tossed into the ground by machines. They were planted by hand, one, by over 20,000 people. The project created a whole new economy. They set up more than 13,000 private nurseries. We're talking about ordinary people, many of them women and unemployed youth, who were given seeds and training to grow saplings in their backyards. The government promised to buy every healthy sapling back from them. Suddenly, green was literally gold. For the first time, protecting a tree was more profitable than cutting it down. This economic engine is what drove the first phase to success faster than anyone predicted. But planting the trees was only half the battle. The real miracle is what happened next. In many areas, they didn't even have to plant every single tree. They used a technique called assisted natural regeneration. They realized that if they just protected certain areas from grazing goats and woodcutters, the Earth's own memory would take over. Dormant seeds that had been buried in the dry soil for years began to sprout. Ancient root systems that were still clinging to life underground felt the protection and started pushed up new shoots. By simply fencing off large tracts of land and hiring local naigabans or forest guards, they allowed nature to heal itself. The results, 10 years later, are staggering. If you look at NASA's satellite data from 2014 and compare it to 2024, the difference is like night and day. Huge swaths of land that used to show up as barren orange and brown are now deep, lush pixels of green. But the visual change is just the beginning. The actual climate of these regions is shifting. In areas with high tree density, the local temperature has dropped by several degrees during the peak of summer. The massive root systems are acting like a giant sponge, absorbing the monsoon rains and preventing the soil from washing away. In the 2022 floods, the areas that had been reforested saw significantly less damage to infrastructure than the areas that remained barren. The trees are literally acting as a biological shield for the people living nearby. Wait until you hear about the wildlife. This is where the story gets really incredible. As the forests returned, so did the inhabitants. Leopards have been spotted in areas where they hadn't been seen in 50 years. Rare pheasants and migratory birds are using these new forests as fur stops on their journeys across the continent. Even the insects, the foundation of every ecosystem, are booming. This has led to better pollination for nearby farms, meaning the Acher project is actually increasing the food security of the country. The farmers who were once skeptical are now seeing better crop yields because the trees are providing windbreaks and improving the moisture level of the air. One of the most fascinating parts of this project is the variety of trees. They didn't just plant a monoculture of one species. That would have been a disaster, as a single pest could have wiped everything out. Instead, they focused on indigenous species. In the north, they planted Himalayan cedars and pines. In the river valleys, they planted shisham and mulberry. Along the coast, they launched a massive effort to restore the mangrove forests. Mangroves are incredible. They can store up to 4 times more carbon than a regular forest and act as a nursery for fish and shrimp. By planting millions of mangroves, Pakistan is not only fighting climate change, but also revitalizing its fishing industry. But let's talk about the challenges, because it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Growing 500 million trees in a volatile environment is an uphill battle. There were forest fires, some accidental and some started by groups who didn't want the land to be protected. There were droughts that threatened to wipe out the young nurseries. There was the constant struggle against the timber mafia, illegal loggers who fought the project at every turn. But the local communities, who now saw the forest as their own source of income and protection, stood their ground. They became the first line of defense. The Naigaban Guards, many of them former loggers themselves, are now the fiercest protectors of the trees. The scale of the green economy created here is a blueprint for the rest of the world. It showed that you don't have to choose between the environment and the economy. In Pakistan, the environment asterisk became asterisk the economy. During the global pandemic, when many industries shut down, the government launched the e-green stimulus package. They hired thousands of people who had lost their jobs in the cities to go back to their villages and plant trees. It was a genius move. It kept the economy moving, gave people dignity through work, and accelerated the planting goals. Now, if you travel through the Hirosha region in the north, the transformation is most unbelievable. This was once a rocky, desolate hillside where nothing grew. If you go there today, you are walking through a thick, young forest. The canopy is already closing, creating a shaded world beneath. The soil, which was once just hard sand and rock, is beginning to turn into rich, dark loam as the fallen leaves decay. You can actually smell the difference in the air. It's sweet, moist, and alive. This is what 500 million trees look like when they start to grow up. Pakistan's success has had a massive ripple effect globally. Other nations are now looking at the billion-tree tsunami as the gold standard for large-scale restoration. The World Economic Forum and the United Nations have praised the project, not just for the number of trees, but for the high survival rate. Over 80% of the trees planted have survived, which is a staggering number for a project of this size. This is because they didn't just plant and walk away. They used technology to monitor the growth, using drones and satellite imaging to identify areas that needed more water or protection. One of the secret weapons of this project was the use of seed balls. In areas that were too rugged or dangerous for people to climb, they used helicopters and drones to drop millions of these balls. A seed ball is a seed wrapped in a mixture of clay, compost, and charcoal. The clay protects the seed from birds and heat, and the compost gives it the nutrients it needs to start growing as soon as the first rain hits. This aerial bombardment of life allowed them to reforest mountainsides that had been inaccessible for centuries. It's a high-tech solution to an ancient problem, and it worked brilliantly. But what does this mean for the future? Pakistan has now upped the ante. They have moved from the billion-tree tsunami to the 10 billion-tree tsunami. They want to cover the entire country in a green network that connects the high mountains of the Karakoram to the Arabian Sea. They are building urban forests in cities like Karachi and Lahore to combat the heat island effect. These mini-forests, planted using the Miyawaki method, grow 10 times faster and are 30 times denser than traditional plantations. They act as fur-green lungs for millions of people, filtering the urban pollution and providing a sanctuary for city dwellers. Think about the psychological impact on the people. For a generation that grew up seeing the land disappear, seeing it come back is a source of immense national pride. Young people are volunteering for planting drives. Schools are including tree care in their curriculum. There is a sense of hope that is palpable. For the first time in a long time, the conversation about the environment in Pakistan isn't about what's being lost. It's about what's being built. The economic benefits are also starting to compound. As the forests mature, they will provide a sustainable source of timber and non-timber products like honey, fruits, and medicinal plants. Beekeeping has exploded in the reforested areas. The billion tree honey is already becoming a recognized brand, providing a high-value export for the country. This creates a circle of sustainability. The trees protect the bees pollinate the crops in the forest, and the honey provides the money to plant more trees. Another incredible outcome is the restoration of the groundwater. When a landscape is barren, the rain just runs off the surface, taking the soil with it. But when you have a forest, the water follows the roots deep into the earth, recharging the aquifers. In villages near the new forests, people are reporting that old wells that had been dry for decades are suddenly filling up with water again. This is a game changer for a country that is facing a water crisis. The trees aren't just making the land look pretty, they are literally bringing the water back from the depths. As we look at the world today, with all the news of environmental challenges, the story of Pakistan's 500 million trees is a beacon of light. It proves that we are not helpless. It proves that the earth is incredibly resilient if we just give it a little help and then get out of the way. If a country facing massive economic and political challenges can transform its landscape so dramatically, then any country can. It's a matter of will, community involvement, and a long-term vision. The unbelievable part of the title isn't an exaggeration. When you look at the drone footage of the Changamanga forest or the mangroves of the Indus Delta, the scale is hard to wrap your head around. Thousands of hectares of new life where there was once only dust. It changes the way we think about history. Usually we think of human progress as something that replaces nature, but here human progress is the restoration of nature. The infrastructure of the 21st century in Pakistan isn't just highways and dams, it's forests and wetlands. The project has also sparked a green diplomacy in the region. Pakistan is now sharing its expertise with other countries in Central Asia and the Middle East. They are helping Saudi Arabia with their Green Saudi initiative and working with neighboring countries to create green corridors that allow wildlife to migrate safely across borders. It turns out that trees don't care about political boundaries. They provide shade and oxygen to everyone equally. One of the most moving parts of this journey is seeing the women's nurseries. In many rural areas, women were previously excluded from the formal economy. But the tree tsunami changed that. By giving women the tools and the financial incentive to run nurseries, the project has empowered thousands of households. These women are now the leaders of the environmental movement in their villages. They aren't just growing trees, they are growing a new social structure where the environment is at the center of the community's well-being. The technology used to track these trees is also world-class. Each major plantation is GPS tagged. There is a transparent dashboard where anyone can see the progress of the planting drives. This level of transparency was crucial for gaining the trust of international donors and the public. It moved the project from political promises to verifiable data. When you can see the trees growing from a satellite, you know the money was well spent. But let's look forward. 500 million is just the midpoint. The goal of 10 billion is even more staggering. To reach that, they are looking at smart forests, where sensors monitor the soil moisture and health of the trees in real time. They are looking at restoring the lost river ecosystems and creating massive wildlife sanctuaries that can rival the great parks of Africa. They are dreaming of a Pakistan that is once again the AP green jewel of the region. If you ever feel overwhelmed by the state of the planet, just think about those 500 million saplings. Think about the thousands of hands that put them in the dirt. Think about the rain falling on those new leaves and the water soaking into the once dry ground. Think about the leopards returning to the hills and the bees finding the flowers. It is a reminder that the earth is always ready to come back to life. We just have to be the ones who start the process. The land in Pakistan doesn't just look unbelievable because it's green. It looks unbelievable because it shows the footprint of a humanity that has decided to be a guardian instead of a consumer. It's a landscape of reconciliation. We spent the last century taking from the earth. This project is about giving back, and the earth is responding with a generosity that is breathtaking. Next time you see a tree, think about its potential. Think about what 1 million of them could do. Or 1 billion. Pakistan has shown us that the unbelievable is just a project that hasn't been started yet. They took a desert and turned it back into a forest. They took a heat wave and turned it back into a breeze. They took a flood and turned it back into groundwater. This is the power of a mega project that has its heart in the right place. As we see the green spread across the map, we realize that we are watching the birth of a new kind of world. A world where nature is a priority, and where every child can grow up in the shade of a forest that their parents helped plant. The 500 million trees of Pakistan are just the beginning of a global tsunami of green that could, if we choose, change the face of our planet forever. The land looks unbelievable because it gives us a glimpse of a future that is actually possible. A future that is cool, moist, vibrant, and infinitely alive. The story of the billion-tree tsunami is far from over. As these trees mature, they will become massive forests that will stand for centuries. They will be the monuments of our time. Future generations won't look at our concrete skyscrapers to see our greatness. They will look at the majestic cedars and the vast mangroves. They will see that even when things were at their most challenging, we found a way to plant hope in the dirt. And as those 500 million trees continue to grow, that hope is becoming a reality that can be seen from the stars. The miracle of the Pakistan Project is a testament to the fact that environmental restoration is the ultimate win-win for humanity. It solves the climate crisis, it builds the economy, it empowers the marginalized, and it brings back the sheer beauty of the world. It's a project that speaks to the best in us. So, as you look at those before and after satellite images, remember that those green pixels represent a triumph of the human spirit. They are a promise kept to the earth. And that is the most unbelievable part of all. As the sun sets over the now green hills of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the air is filled with the sounds of a living world. The dust has settled, the heat has softened, and the billion-tree tsunami rolls on. Phase 1 is a success, Phase 2 is in motion, and the world is watching. We have learned that we can rebuild the garden. We have learned that we can heal the land. And most importantly, we have learned that when we protect nature, nature protects us right back. This is the story of 500 million trees, but it's actually a story about us, about our ability to change, our ability to dream, and our ability to plant a future that is as unbelievable as the green hills of Pakistan today. The land has been reborn, and in the process, perhaps we have been a little bit reborn too. The billion-tree tsunami is more than a project. It is a movement that is rewriting the destiny of a nation and inspiring a planet. And it all started with a single seed in a backyard nursery. That is the power of one, multiplied by 500 million.